Next, we're going to draw for architecture. Calvin is throwing me random genre prompts here, so that I don't just stick to fantasy and sci-fi for everything. So we're about to draw for architecture, and the genre prompt is Japanese steampunk. So when you're drawing for architecture, it's a really easy draw, actually. Normally, when a building is built, it will frequently be built for one type of person and then misappropriated. The original person it was built for will leave, and then someone else will come and make use of that space for a totally different purpose. So I always start architecture with a red character card to figure out who it was built for originally, because that gives you an idea of the initial layout. And this is perfect for steampunk, because steampunk is all about taking things that were originally made for one purpose and then using them for something totally different. So I think that'll be fun. You have 2 element cards to figure out what the building is made of, or at least what it's trying to imitate. And then a texture card for sensory immersion. So let's see what we have in this Japanese steampunk building. Healer. Okay, so this was originally, first thought is hospital. This was originally a hospital. And the first thing that comes to mind is a big hospital, so I'm just going to run with that. So healer. So a large hospital. Let's say it's like, I think things like 40 years old, so maybe the steampunk equivalent of whatever that is. So kind of an era originally built in like the 60s. We'll say that. We'll run with that. And then what is it made of? First, it's made of clay. Oh, interesting. Okay, the other thing that's kind of creepy about this is that clay is a metaphor for human flesh, and it emphasizes that the body is the less valuable half of a soul. It's prone to decay and subject to the whims of the gods. So, let's see, how can I use this in fun ways? Because there's a lot of good stuff in this. I'm going to try to extract as much as I can from this prompt. The first thought is, this isn't a well-to-do hospital. Okay, it's not made of fancy, shiny materials. It could literally be made of, I think of the materials that you see in like bathhouses in Japanese movies. I'm not actually sure what type of building material that is, but I think that's what I want this to be made of. I'm gonna have to go research that now. So we'll start with, it's a large, sprawling, but not well-to-do hospital. The next prompt that's interesting here is that the body is the less valuable half of a soul. So what I would actually do here is have this be, that reminds me of like Shinto purification temples and stuff. So maybe like right outside this hospital, which is normally a place where you think of sickness and decay. I'm going to say all around this hospital, the architect included space for a simple but very beautiful Shinto garden, complete with like little purification spring and stuff that people will go for comfort, especially when they're staying in the hospital for long periods of time. Prone to decay and subject to the whims of the gods. And the other thing that I think I would do is probably have this be some sort of special hospital that specializes in ailments that are hard to cure. I think that's what I'm going to do with this part, is subject to the whims of the gods. So maybe they deal with problems associated with old age. So that gives me 3 distinct and interesting pieces of information from this card, which I really like. Let's find out what other element we have here. So we know what the building is made of now. So I'm either going to look for what the design is trying to imitate, or what material it's made of, or both. Let's see what we get. Abs animal. Okay. So with this card, you can take it literally, but you don't have to. And what's interesting frequently is when you take something that's totally mute, dead, has no life whatsoever, and you give it some of the characteristics of an animal. So you take something abstract, intangible, or mute, the characteristics of an animal, which are mobility, emotion, low-level sentience, and unpredictable behavior. So let's see, we're in Japanese steampunk territory, and I haven't really done much with the steampunk yet. So mobility, Japanese steampunk. Well, depends on how outrageous we want to get. First thought here is like Howl's Moving Castle, like maybe it's a hospital on legs, which would be interesting but also difficult. My second thought, whenever I see this card drawn, I always think of boats, because people who live on boats, sailors and stuff, will frequently develop a very strong relationship with the boat. They refer to it as a she, they give it a name, and they will often develop really astonishing loyalty towards this boat, even though it's just a hunk of wood. So maybe... And then my third thought here is, like, if you have a building that was originally built in the 60s, it's going to need updating at some point. You're going to have those little wire things in the hallways that allow you to give it heating and electricity. So maybe in the steampunk world, depending on the mechanics of your steampunk stuff, I'm going to say that whatever those technological upgrades are, they are lining the hallways of this thing. So when I look at this animal card, the other thing that I thought of was just having steam pipes and stuff just loaded down the halls of this once upon a hospital, and, you know, hissing and kind of crowding out hallways that weren't originally meant to hold that kind of thing, which kind of adds the animal element of, you know, it's something that makes noise, it never quite sleeps, or even when it is sleeping, it's kind of twitching. So I like that visual a lot. We haven't done a whole lot with the Japanese except having the Shinto garden outside, which is kind of fun. And then let's add some sensory immersion here. Velvet. Labor-intensive weave of fabric that mimics the soft fur on a young buck's antlers, worn to inspire reverence or respect. Okay, so the Japanese velvet is a European fabric, and the Japanese equivalent would absolutely be hand-painted silk. So I think that for sensory immersion, I would use silk everywhere, which would be just great contrast for the hissing hallways steampunk element. So I'm gonna say just beautiful woven silk curtains, silk bed sheets. The nurses and stuff that are there are wearing simple but pretty hand-painted silk outfits. So, and that really ties in the last of the Japanese element to this. So there you go. Those are basic instructions for drawing for architecture. You need 1 character card to figure out who it was built for originally, 2 element cards to figure out what it's made of, and then 1 texture card to find sensory immersion. So hope this is helpful. Let us know in the comments what you come up with.